In this tutorial, we will be learning about how to use Python to open files, read and write them. So first of all, we need to create a file. I've already done this in a little handy-dandy text editor. So I've created a file with 4 lines in it. This is a test file, line 2 and 3, and another line with just some silly text in it. Now we're going to try to open it using Python. The typical way to open files is just to use the open command. So we'll create a variable to hold our file object. And then we just need to pass it the path to the file. So in this case, it'll be something like users. And it's probably case sensitive. It really depends on your OS. On Linux type environments, it's always case sensitive. Let's see if this works. So let's see what the handle object is. We have a text wrapper, and the mode is in read mode by default. Let's see if we can actually read a line. And there you go. It read the first line in the file. And you notice it has a /n on the end. The /n is a new line. If you want to read the rest of the file, you can keep on hitting read line over and over again. It'll read each line individually. I'll just close that up. And I'll show you another easier way to open the file and read from it. So let's go back up and grab the original handle. And we'll open it up once more. Now we'll use a for loop to loop over each line. So for line in the handle, and print each line out. And that'll print out each line in the file. Now if you were to save your script in the same location, using Michael Desktop Pi101 code, you could actually use a shortcut because the code will be in the same place. You could actually have handle equal open just test.txt. Since we're running this in the Python shell, this probably won't work because it's not opened in that specific directory. In fact, if we do that, we'll get an error, as you can see. It thinks we're somewhere else. So again, if you were to actually save your file, well, actually, why don't we just do that? Let's create a new one. And we'll just save this file in the same location. On the desktop and in the code. And we'll just call this test.py. Alright, so now we're in the right location. Let's go ahead and try the same thing. So this time we'll do it just a little bit differently. For line in open test.txt. And we'll have it print out the line. And let's see what this does when we run it. And let's know if we want to save it. Okay, so we run the code and it works the same way. On Windows, you may find that you need to use a raw string to get your paths right. So for example, on Windows, you might have something like, well, let's just start over. Let's say you have a string like this. You got something saved in your C file folder. Usually it's in users. We'll say it's in Mike. And we'll say it's on the desktop. And this is just an example. You have this lovely string you want to open. You do that, and you get some funky errors. Now, why did this happen exactly? If you print out the string, which I don't think you can do in 3, you'll find out that the string is kind of bad because it's got /m/D/ whatever. That means that it thinks that there's some Unicode in there. So if you put an R at the front, you can make this into a raw string, and it'll print out correctly and escape all those backslashes. I highly recommend doing this if you're using Python on Windows to open up files. It makes things a heck of a lot easier. Otherwise, you can use forward slashes in place of backslashes, but that looks kind of weird if you're used to the Windows environment. Alright, just to reiterate, when we open the file, we opened it in read-only mode. You can do that a little bit more explicitly by actually passing it in R. That makes it in read-only mode. And if we want to write to a file, we can pass it W. Or if we want to append to a file, we can pass it A for append. Let's actually try the append one right now. So let's try adding a write. This is a new line. And we'll add a customary line ender. Oops. This is another thing that happens occasionally. I've mixed up my quotes. There's a double quote at the beginning and a single quote at the end. So let's put a double quote there. There we go. It wrote out something. Let's close the file. And now let's open it back up and see what happens. So for line in handle, print line. Let's see if the new line is there. I believe the reason that we got this error is that I had it open again in append mode. So let's just fix that. Let's reclose it and see if we can get that fixed. So let's go up and grab this, put it back in read-only mode. Now if we read it, hopefully it'll work. There we go. So you can't open it and assume it's going to read. That should be pretty obvious, and that was a fairly obvious error, not readable, because we opened it in append mode. Alright, let's create a new file. So we'll use a variable this time, and we'll just copy and paste part of this code. And I copied it wrong. Alright, I'll create this as a test2.txt. Okay, let's open up some new handle, a right handle this time. This time I'll open the path, and I'll pass it the right flag. So now if you want to write stuff to this file, we just do write handle.write. And you can type in whatever we want to pass to the file. Some text with a /n at the end. Let's write some more text. And then let's save it off. Whoops, it's supposed to be right handle dot close. Probably shouldn't have called it right. Alright, so now we have the file. Let's maybe if it actually got created properly. So let's reopen it with the code that we used before. With a slight change, and now we're opening the path that we just created. For line in handle. Print the line. And you can see that it created the file with the two pieces of text that we put into it. That was pretty cool, was it not? I just want to mention that you can also read and write with binary. The flags for that are RB for reading binary and WB for writing binary. Now when you read binary, you're not going to actually be able to read the file. You're just going to get a lot of gobbledygook that you can't actually, it's just not human readable. But that's how you would open like a PDF file, or maybe even like an executable. Why you'd want to open those, in Python, I don't really know. But you can do that, and you can read to them and write to them. Or, I mean, you can write to your own type of file. For example, if you had another external library like Report Lab, you could create your own PDF and write that out. Alright, well, we have one more topic to cover, and that's using the with operator to open files and write to them or read from them. Basically, when you use with, you end up creating a context manager when it's used with the open command. So let's use the with open. We'll just grab that path again. And this time we say as handle. So it's kind of backwards from what we were doing before. Before we had handle equals open path. Now we have with open path as handle. So we're creating the path as an open file object and passing it as handle, basically assigning this to the handle, just like we were doing above. So now we can still do the for line and handle bit, print the line out. And the cool thing about this is that the with context manager will actually close the file after it's done reading it. Oops. Don't mind me, I'm still used to using Python too. Alright. So we opened up the file, called it, passed it in as the handle variable, then we looped over each line in the file and printed it out. Now technically you can do the same, you can use the with operator to write too. You just have to tell it to use the write flag instead. Now note, by passing the write flag, if this path already exists, it will overwrite the file. So fair warning, if you do this, you will wipe out the file that you are trying to write to. This will not append to it, it just completely obliterates it. So in this case, we'll just create some text, something silly like the alphabet. Well, part of the alphabet in this case. And we'll just loop over that and write it out. So, for letter in text, handle.write the letter plus, we'll go ahead and put a new line character at the end. So each letter will have it be on its own line. And you can see that I wrote write wrong, so let's make sure we fix that. And let's run this and see what happens. Well, so far so good. That appears to have worked. Now we can just reopen it with that code we used before and see if it prints out correctly. As you can see, that's one easy and simple way to open a file and read from it, and to write the file as well. And you notice that it also closes the file for you all by itself. Very handy. The last topic I want to talk about is actually catching errors when you're reading and writing from files. The typical way is, of course, using the try and except method. So with open path, as handle, for line and handle, print the line, and if there's an exception like an IO error, which you'll get if you don't have permission. Sometimes, so it depends on the operating system, but sometimes you'll get a permission error or an IO error and occasionally an OS error. It really depends on how it's implemented. But anyway, so we'll just say an OS error has occurred. And we'll also have a finally statement. This is where you could actually close the file handler, but because we already closed it with the with, we're not going to do that here. Alright, this actually won't do a whole lot, just going to read it and then print out the potential to close the handle. But it's already been closed, so that doesn't really matter. If we did do it where we do handle equals open, Then you want to do the handle.close in the finally portion of the code. Let's actually try to catch an error, because that's a little bit more fun. So let's take the same code. We'll just get rid of the finally because it's not needed. Don't need that. And we don't need that. Oops. And we need to make this path not work. So we'll just make up a path. I'll just call it path to nowhere. Gotta make sure we have all the right characters in there, okay? So now we run this, and we get an OS error. If you want, you can raise an error. Oops, that didn't work the way I expected. Let's try to do that again. I'm gonna try to re-raise that error and see what actually happened. Here we go. So we ran it with a non-existent path. It couldn't open the file, so we went into the exception handler, and the exception handler was called. We put out a custom message, and then by putting raise inside of that, it'll actually raise the original traceback again, so we can see what the actual error was. In this case, no such file or directory, of course, because this is a made-up folder. At this point, you should be able to read and write files as well as append to your existing files. Have fun, and thanks again for watching.